I've always taken a little pride in being a quote-unquote balanced nerd. I love traditional sports just as much as I love watching esports. I love playing soccer just as much as I love watching a good anime. In October of 2023, I was watching the Champions League, which, for those who aren't into soccer, it's one of, if not the most prestigious title of the year. It's kind of like the Super Bowl of soccer, where the best teams in the world compete. In the middle of the game, Esteban calls me. He's like, "Yo, what's up? What are you doing?" "Oh, just watching the Champions League game. What about you? What are you doing?" To what he replied, almost confused, lost, and sad. He said, What the f*** are you doing that you're not watching Jujutsu Kaisen?" What I found funny about this story is that when my quote-unquote geek friend asked me what was I doing, I thought that my reply was cool as fuck. Yeah, that's right. I might be top 10 in my region in Smash Ultimate, but right now, I'm watching Champions League. If you want to suck my make an appointment. And my friend's reply flipped all that. He basically said it was like a trick question. There's only one right answer. What the f*** are you doing that you are not watching Jujutsu Kaisen? So, why wasn't I? Just to be clear, my friend was talking about the second season of JJK. I had already seen the first season a long time ago, and I found those first 24 episodes to be underwhelming. The animation was cool, sure, but the story and the general structure was too similar to other works, leaving me to believe that this was just another trending show, taking advantage of the popularity of the shonen genre. Nevertheless, now that I've seen it, I agree that JJK deserves the reputation that it has gained over the last couple of years. It still mirrors other titles, but rather than focusing on the similarities alone and attempting to make that work, it is how the author presents their differences that makes Jujutsu Kaisen feel fresh and entertaining. Here's how Jujutsu Kaisen copied everything right. I will get into the difference later, but first, let's acknowledge some of the parallels that it has with other shows. There are probably more, but these are just some of them that caught my eye in the first and second watchings of the show. Particularly in the first season, there are enough for me to believe that this was just another wannabe that will fall short, just like Fairy Tail or Magi, however you pronounce that. Without going into too much detail, from the surface we have our basic shonen protagonist, who has an evil being sealed within him. They are not on the same side, but every once in a while these entities get them out of tough spots, even if the outcome ends up costing them in some way. He's part of a team of 3 where there are 2 guys and 1 girl. Their sensei has spiky silver hair, is wearing some sort of mask, and he's both savvy and strong. Gojo and Geto's dynamic reminds me of Ban and Ginji from Get Backers, with Gojo and Ban's design looking alike. The Goodwill event arc, where they meet and fight other students from a different group, it's basically the Chunin exam from Naruto in both timing and structure. Here we meet Rock Lee, a person born without the ability to use cursed energy, considers herself a quote-unquote low class, but she's determined to prove to everyone that true effort can compensate for whatever lack of natural talent you may have. These people train their hardest every day. We also meet an even Rock Lee, but I don't want to get off topic. In Naruto, we learn about the existence of Kekkei Genkai, which refers to special abilities that supposedly can only be attained if you're born with them, such as the Byakugan from the Hyuga clan or Cursed Speech from the Inumaki clan. However, we later see the Sharingan passed to another person through jutsu and blood manipulation achieved through science, so the parallels just keep adding up. Yuji's ability looks just like Gon's from Hunter x Hunter. Yuta's ability is straight up Eo's Oversoul from Shaman King. Overall, abilities in Jujutsu Kaisen get stronger if they are restricted with some kind of rule, just like Nen from Hunter x Hunter. And finally, there's that Digimon reference in the second episode of Season 2.
進されれば術式効果も振り出しに戻る。進化は起こらない。なるほど。メタルグレイモンになる分にはいいけど、スカルグレイモンになると困る。だからコロモンからやり直すって話ね。まあいいや、それで。
This one in particular serves as a cherry on top of me for multiple reasons. Despite the fact that I am a huge Digimon fan and this reference actually helped me understand the concept of Tengen Sama better. This little nod exhibits intentionality. And once I realized that, what I first saw as lazy copying began to take the shape of little homages and love letters to some of my favorite manga and anime. Gege Akutami, the creator of Jujutsu Kaisen, is about my age. He grew up enjoying the same works that I did, and he filled his world with all those deliberate nods for people that will recognize him. He used all of these tropes as a foundation, and then, by adding his fresh touch and focusing on the differences, he managed to create his own thing that will resonate with both old and new audiences. Of course, it helps that the second season's plot is an absolute improvement compared to the first season, but even if we ignore the plot, it's here where the characters' individual traits start to shine, distinguishing them from what we've grown accustomed in other traditional shonen. Megumi, despite his colored design, is not Sasuke. He's not even Itadori's rival, they are just friends, which on the surface might sound less interesting, but when you build a character whose main trait is that he's the quote-unquote rival, he may suffer from becoming just a plot device for the protagonist to get stronger. Not to mention that it's just boring if the audience is expecting it. It's a wasted opportunity to subvert your audience's expectations, which is something that Akutami has become really good at. And speaking of subverting expectations, I love Nobara. At first glance, she's straight up Sakura from Naruto. I would have guessed that she's some kind of side character or maybe a romantic interest for the protagonist, but after we got to know her, I wanted her to be interested in me. There's a cool method for measuring representation of women in media. It is called the Bechdel test or Bechdel test, and it is simply used to evaluate if said female character is compelling, realistic, or interesting. Of course, this is not an absolute rule, but you'll be surprised on how many films, shows, or novels cannot check all of these three boxes. Number 1, have 2 female characters. Number 2, have them talk to each other. They need to have a conversation alone, by themselves. And number 3, whatever they talk about, whatever their conversation is, it needs to be a topic other than men or a romantic interest. Nobara passes all 3. Despite her not being absolutely essential for the narrative, the mold of Sakura is broken by an interesting character with her own motivations and a desire to live a life true to herself. She wants to escape the constraints of her rural origins, and I respect that. Add in what happens in the Shibuya incident arc, and the differences in her dynamic as a character become even more palpable. Now, who am I missing though? Oh. How can you not love this guy? I know it's kind of a cliche these days to bring up Satoru Gojo in a video essay about Jujutsu Kaisen, but this guy didn't just break the mold. He like it was Tylee from Avatar and then just make the for more. The wise, reserved mentor who guides the protagonist. At a glance, he even looks just like Kakashi Sensei, but there's a twist.
マジじゃ、10秒だ。10秒経ったら戻っておいで。でも大丈夫。僕最強だから。
When I first heard that sentence, I thought there was an error in the translation. They meant to say, "Don't worry, I'm strong," or "Don't worry, I'm stronger." But nope, he meant to be superlative. Do you know how hard it is, or it must be, to introduce a character in the first episode that is overpowered to the point of almost absurdity? Establish him as one of the good guys, make him a recurring character, and still make it work, have a successful story, and an interesting story? Gojo is unapologetically cocky, flamboyant, confident, yet he's deeply invested in his students' growth and in reshaping the system of sorcerers. He adds to the story, and his duality as both a comic relief and an unstoppable force allows for the story to be unpredictable and interesting. And the only reason why this even works is because Akutami has done a splendid job at setting the stakes for every event. Usually, in shonen, the protagonists and their allies always prevail. often with minimal losses. But JJK leans into the harsh realities of its world. Characters die, and victories often come with a significant emotional and moral cost. Even a character like Gojo can be dealt with, and there are times where success can still feel like failure. The constant threat of loss keeps the stakes high and the audience on the edge. This is a good show. It kept subverting my expectations, and it made me excited for what's to come the next season. I used to get mad whenever I noticed someone taking advantage of an already established piece of work. But JJK reminds me of the difference between copying and honoring. Jujutsu Kaisen may borrow heavily from iconic manga, but it does so in a way that it respects its influences, elevates familiar tropes, and delivers a cohesive experience that stands on its own in the world of shonen anime and manga. Like the saying goes, it doesn't matter who did it first, but who did it best. Execution is everything. Thank you so much for watching the first video of the year. I will keep them coming. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider leaving a like or maybe subscribing. It helps a ton. And yeah, if you enjoy anime and like Vinland Saga, I recommend you this video over here if you haven't watched it. And if you're in the mood for something else, this one is my favorite video so far. It's the best work I've done. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy. Thank you. Have a good one. See ya.